Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our webinar presented by Bridgeline Digital on the Unified Customer Experience. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Alex Combos. I'm the SVP of Marketing and Growth here at Bridgeline. Our hosts for today are Sean Barker, VP of Business Development, and Carl Prizzi, Senior Vice President of Product Management. Just some minor housekeeping. If you have questions throughout the presentation, please enter them in the question box and we'll address them at the very end. We're willing to share this deck, so if interested in this, stay tuned as we'll disclose instructions in the last slide. With that said, Sean, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Alex, and hello, everyone. So here's a look at the topics that we'll be covering today. First, we'll talk about what a unified customer experience is, who should care and why. Then we'll cover how to plan and execute a strategy without really getting too much into the weeds. And with any implementation, you'll hit some roadblocks, and we plan on covering some of the most common ones that we see. Lastly, we'll leave you with some key takeaways, and before we finish up with Q&A. For those of you who don't know, Bridgeline provides web content management, e-commerce, and marketing automation to assist organizations in delivering exceptional digital experiences that engage prospects and build relationships with customers across multiple channels. That multi-channel approach is what a unified customer experience is all about. Now, before we define what a unified customer experience is, let me first explain it with a couple examples. In this first one, Wells Fargo can be seen demonstrating great execution. Not too long ago, I walked into my local branch to inquire about some investment opportunities, and then when I logged into my account a few days later, I was shocked to see the accuracy of the content that was being offered. And in the highlighted box on the right-hand side, it says, "Have money in an old 401k." That wasn't there before. So what makes this a well-executed example? A few things, actually. And one, the relevance of the content. Two, the timing. And something that we really rarely see. And that's Wells Fargo was able to take information they captured from an offline conversation, and then they fed it to the next channel that I showed up at. In the second example, I'm going to point out why Quicken Loans demonstrated poor execution. Over the last week, I went to Quicken Loans' website 3 or 4 times to research how to buy a second home, specifically for vacation purposes. Call it wishful thinking. Anyway, the emails that I received from them over the last week, and there were a couple, ended up not having anything to do with what my interests are, which could be assumed based on the content that I read on their website and in their blogs. So what makes this a poor example of a unified customer experience? The content that was shared with me via email, it didn't have anything to do with what my interests are. And I think it's safe to assume that their email platform and content management system, whatever they are disconnected. And you know what the worst part about all of this is? They're missing out on a lot of opportunities, and they probably don't even know about it. So what is a unified customer experience? It is a process designed to ensure that all messaging and communications strategies are consistent across all channels and are centered on the customer. It seems simple enough to do, right? In today's digital landscape, there's a lot of distribution across an array of touch points and devices. With customers able to interact through multiple channels at any given moment, companies often struggle to really deliver a coherent experience across all interactions. I guess, welcome to the age of the connected customer. No longer limited to single traditional channels, the connected customer interacts with your brand across many different touch points, online, in the store, and on the go. It seems simple to understand, but tough to get right, thus considered by many a unicorn. So who should care? At Bridgeline, we often get asked, how do I know if I should be adopting this concept? Well, if you're selling a product or service, then there is no question. You should be implementing a unified customer experience. But even those who don't sell traditional products and services, such as like a university or a hospital, they too should be looking to adopt this concept. There is no such thing as an informational website anymore. A website is just one channel in the grand scheme of things that you're using to influence people to convert one way or another. Plain and simple, this is the new battlefield, and that's why it's so important. And with 70% of B2B buyers' journeys happening online without any human interaction today, it's critical that you're able to help your prospects and customers make informed decisions. So there's a lot involved when it comes to providing a unified customer experience. There's people, technology decisions, you need a detailed plan of attack, all the channels, and of course measurement and refinement. Having a cross-functional leader is an important part of this process, and we'll dive into this a little bit more later on. By the year 2020, customer experience will overtake price and product as the key brand differentiator. And why? It's because behavioral trends show that customers want it. Let's review now how a company can set the right plan. So before you think about where you are today, I wanted to show you how we've evolved from a single channel marketing all the way to a unified customer experience. Today, most companies fall under multi-channel marketing. They are able to provide unique experiences for each one independently, but they fall short when passing the information across different channels. And this impacts the effectiveness of each person's experience because the connected customer interacts with you using multiple devices and across many different channels, and their expectation is that you can follow along. Now, to maximize the effectiveness of your sales and marketing initiatives, you want to be in a situation where each prospect or customer can jump from channel to channel, and as they do, unique pieces of content and information feed their needs, thus moving them through the funnel. Now, the difference between where you are today and where you want to be is your gap. When implementing a concept such as a unified customer experience, it's important that you choose a cross-functional leader to oversee the project. And this person will be more likely to build a team of folks who also have a cross-functional mindset. Rome wasn't built in a day, so don't expect all of these changes to essentially happen overnight, especially for larger companies. And that said, you should put together a plan that you feel confident in executing and phase it out if need be. Lastly, you should have the mindset of always looking downfield by choosing agile technology. Now, depending on the size of your company, you might want to consider doing a discovery engagement before you start actually planning. A good discovery will entail working with the business leaders on a top-down approach and then bottom up when building out all of your requirements. There are 6 key components to implementing a unified customer experience. There's obviously strategy, governance, technology, business process, analytics, and then last, refinement and management. Now, once you've done all of your requirements gathering, the first step is to put together a plan. And every successful engagement starts with a well-documented plan and one where every key player understands their role and responsibilities. When creating your goals and objectives, it's critical that you're putting the company first and not specific business functions. So define what success looks like from a company standpoint and then build around departmental KPIs. but they should all be directly associated with impacting the overall mission. One activity that is typically done during the planning stage is to create buyer personas and narrow down your ideal customer profile. In order to deliver relevant messaging, you have to understand who your ideal customers are and create profiles or personas. Each persona will have their specific hot buttons that you'll want to address in your messaging. Content, really, in all of this is the fuel that powers the engine. So whether it's video, blogs, product reviews, or perhaps a white paper, each piece of content offers, valuable information to your customers and prospects, and it gets you one step closer to your ultimate goal. And I just want to point out that I recommend everyone to do a content audit, especially at the beginning of this process, because creating content is time-consuming, and there's no easy way around it. And one other quick note here, it's also important that you're able to effectively tag your content, because it will really help you drive personalization. Now, because content plays such a critical role in nurturing and converting, I strongly advocate that your company installs a content creation workflow process that promotes easy ways to create, edit, and publish content across multiple channels from a single platform. Now, if you're using some sort of enterprise web content management system today, you should be able to do this directly from within your dashboard. So going back to the plan, significant change can be challenging, right? And it takes time and money to create breakthrough innovation. Adopting a unified customer experience strategy will be easier for some organizations than for others. And a strong leader, governance, funding, appropriate tools and technologies, as well as process maturity are required to succeed here. So to reinforce this, I'll quote the late Steve Jobs. Innovation has nothing to do with how many R&D dollars you have. When Apple came up with the Mac, IBM was spending at least 100 times more money on R&D. It's not about the money, it's about the people you have, how you are led, and how much you get it. Forrester says only 23% of B2B marketers claim to have a unified customer experience versus a channel or product-centric organizational structure. The lines have blurred so much over the years between IT and marketing, it created new corporate jobs, and even some universities offered as a degree. So it's important to take a cross-functional mindset here, because when customer data lives in silos, it negatively impacts each department's ability to hit their KPIs and overall business objectives. Now, from a technology standpoint, there are a few core technologies that you're going to want to consider. First, of course, world-class built-in SEO capabilities to attract the right people. Then, web content management to empower marketers to effectively create and manage digital content across websites, intranets, web stores, landing pages, and microsites. For many, it's the foundation which all applications plug into. Now, marketing automation is an essential tool because it automates many of the marketing actions, such as sending triggered emails that nurture prospects and customers. And on average, it takes between 7 to 9 interactions to convert someone into a lead. And that's a lot of work for someone to do it if it's done manually. And to reiterate what I said earlier, this is why it's critical to create your buyer personas before you implement your strategy. And the process of setting this up can be really time-consuming, but I promise it's highly effective when done right. E-commerce plays a critical role in the technology stack, especially when it comes to conversions. It might not be applicable for every business, but at the end of the day, websites are meant to drive users closer to take some sort of action. Now, you can't manage what you can't measure, and you can't know whether or not you are successful unless success is defined. And analytics will help you make that determination. Lastly, social media management tools are great when it comes to unfiltered feedback and having your ear to the ground on what people are saying about your brand and your company. It also gives you the opportunity to engage with them at the point of discontent. And I read a report somewhere that consumers expect their complaints made on social media to be addressed in less than an hour. Assuming that's true, it's important that you have tools in place that will help you meet your customer expectations. When it comes to selecting technology, we often see IT departments asking marketing for features or a features wish list. And at Bridgeline, we don't advocate for this, but in the event that you can't deviate from your process, I've highlighted some key features here that I think that you can't live without. Prescriptive analytics, cross-channel personalization, A/B testing, and publishing workflows, just to name a few here. So after you've created your plan of attack, you built your internal team and selected some key pieces of technology, you'll want to take a closer look at creating some business processes. And by definition, business processes is an activity or set of activities that will accomplish a specific organizational goal. One of these activities is to ensure that all of your technologies are able to communicate back and forth, and it's important that everything you see here talks to each other in real time so that information captured from one channel's interaction can be seamlessly passed to the others, whether it be to salespeople, customer service teams, or other technologies to make informed decisions. Another common activity is setting up automation. And the purpose of creating automation is so that you can create real-time unique experiences for each of your segments and personas that we talked about earlier. You just can't do it manually. Deep integration combined with automation will ensure your customers, brand advocates, and even your partners have positive experiences with each interaction. And when it comes to data analytics, at Bridgeline, we prefer to focus on actionable insights. Actionable insights are essentially prescriptive in nature. And prescriptive data leaves no room for interpretation, like its counterpart, behavioral analytics, which often requires the use of advanced algebra to draw conclusions. Not to mention, this can be really a really time-consuming exercise. So you want to be in a position where you're reacting, and it's not enough to just talk about how many website visitors you have or how much time they're spending on your website. It's about how you can quickly draw conclusions that help you manipulate your audience to do certain things like request quotes, buy a product, or download a key marketing asset. The last component is refinement, and this is not something that you leave alone when it's up and running, so it's critical that you continue to test and refine in order to improve your results. One way to test and improve is through A/B testing or split testing. And when it comes to determining what landing pages and messaging converts more prospects and customers, this is really an effective strategy. And it's good to be in a position where you're making objective decisions as opposed to what you think might be working. Another great way to measure and refine your strategy is by analyzing the effectiveness of your topics. Now, the content intelligence company, Concurred, has an interesting take on the subject, and the metrics most marketers track to evaluate performance, including page views, social shares, and reach, are a great way of really seeing what's working. But understanding the why is just as vital. Essentially, when you're able to attribute success at the topic level, you can continuously maximize engagement through the creation of compelling content pieces. There are many different types of content tagging mechanisms today. Some require manual tagging, and some enable you to automatically tag your assets. Just make sure that you're tagging content appropriately based on what the content is about. So at this point, I'll hand it over to Carl to speak to more of the execution and potential roadblocks along the way.
All right. Well, thank you, Sean. And so again, I'm Carl Frizzi. I'm Senior Vice President of Product Management at Bridgeline, and I oversee our product offering here. It's a great pleasure to speak to you all today. And so some of the concepts that Sean has mentioned in regards to developing personas, content strategy, testing, tagging, taxonomy, they're all key to the execution of a unified customer experience. So I'll take a deeper dive into those areas to show you how we address them in our process at Bridgeline. All right, so to start off here, we typically engage with our customers in an upfront research exercise in our discovery phase. And we leverage a user-centered design philosophy where we involve the end user in the architecture and the design process. We conduct stakeholder and end user interviews, ultimately to drive out the business requirements and the end user expectations for the application. Ideally, we want to understand the key objectives and what's important from a business perspective to all the key constituents internally, all the different departments, and we want to also make sure that those objectives jive with the end user's needs and wants as well. So we define key audience personas in order to inform the architecture, design, and content strategy efforts. Oftentimes, we'll conduct a SEO analysis and analytics review to understand the current usage and behavior, as well as performance metrics from a search ranking standpoint. We want to basically learn from how the existing site is performing today in order to baseline it and define key KPIs for overall improvement. We can also conduct content audits to drive out content strategy, in addition to technology audits to understand the overall technology landscape, all in an effort to drive towards the key content requirements and integrations necessary for providing for that unified customer experience, both online and offline. We can also conduct a competitive analysis looking at top competitors, how they're representing themselves online and offline, key features and functions they offer, ultimately striving towards the goal of differentiation, making our customers stand out from their competition. As a result of the research, we then report back on our findings. Basically what we've heard, what we've learned along the way, common themes. We make recommendations and define potential actions that will inform the architecture and the design process. All of the research then culminates into the information architecture for the application. It's basically where we define the blueprints of the user's flow and their interactions with the application through the creation of site maps, flow diagrams, page-level wireframes, etc. And the wireframes are the page-level blueprints outlining the key features, functions, hierarchy of information as it appears on the page, basically the overall structure of the site or the application. We go through a very iterative process there to drive out the architecture, and it's all based on the research findings and best practices. It also directly influences the content strategy and how we address the unified customer experience, layering in key concepts such as taxonomy and content targeting to create that very contextual user experience. Once we come to agreement on the architecture with the key stakeholders, we often conduct usability testing of the architecture. And again, it's involving that end user in the process here. Typically, before we invest the time in the design and the build-out, it's very beneficial to validate the concepts with the end user. So in this stage, we create a clickable prototype to test that user experience of the application to ensure a highly usable experience. So now I'll transition to some potential roadblocks and how we overcome them. And there's many potential roadblocks that can come up when implementing a unified customer experience strategy, but we tend to see a few common themes. It could be outdated and redundant technology, lack of integration, company acquisitions, hosting, etc. So let's dig a little deeper into some of the key platform decisions that you need to make when considering a solution to support a unified customer experience. We have a whole slew of topics like open source versus proprietary, integrated versus best-of-breed solutions, where you're going to host the application, whether you want to upgrade or replace key applications, custom versus out-of-the-box, outsource versus build internally. This is just a small sampling, but of course there's a whole slew of other decisions that you need to make along the process here. So let's take open source versus proprietary. For many years, this debate has been out there, and today it's really not a question of either or, but rather which is the right direction for a specific business need. Key considerations need to be made when addressing areas such as security. Enterprise decision makers need those assurances that the software that's deployed within the organization is secure. And personally, I think it really comes down to the sophistication of the features incorporated into the software. So definitely do due diligence during that process, and make sure that, at the end of the day, the debate really lies not with the method of the actual delivery itself, but with the features offered by the software. All right, so the debate between the best-of-breed software products versus fully integrated systems has gone on for as long as there has been integrated platforms. Each approach certainly has its pros and cons, and the interesting thing here about this debate is that there is no clearly defined right or wrong. Making these types of decisions can be challenging, and at the end of the day, you basically want to have a solution that can help you attract, engage, nurture, and convert your prospects along that customer journey. And when it comes to best of breed, you have the ability to choose the best features for each product that you want to use. There's departmental flexibility. You often get to work with technologies that specialize in certain areas and industries when replacing a technology. You don't necessarily need to have to rip out the entire solution. Integrated solutions, on the other hand, are built from the ground up and work in a cohesive way. They don't need to be cobbled together, and an integrated solution that provides for a single sign-on into a unified suite allows you to work more efficiently across the board and reduces the potential for data living in silos, and also reduces the number of platforms and vendors required. There's a lower maintenance and license cost, of course, and the user adoption tends to be much easier instead of working across multiple disparate platforms. So here we have another debate on what's better from a hosting standpoint, the SaaS versus Perpetual. All right, so with a hosted on-premise solution, oftentimes it requires a larger investment for the licensing up front with ongoing annual maintenance. You'll have things like a dedicated staff to support the environment, key considerations that need to be addressed for handling things like security, performance, ongoing maintenance and support, hardware and software upgrades, really to keep the platform up to date. The list goes on and on there. So as we all know now, with the SaaS cloud offering, it's a multi-tenant environment. It's a lot of that IT burden goes away. You have a smaller overall investment up front, and it's really just a subscription-based model that often provides you with the latest and greatest features and functionality, along with a quicker time to market and added agility. And nowadays, organizations are definitely a lot leaner, and marketing and IT resources are asked to do more with less. And in those types of situations, really that SaaS approach is typically the way to go. All right, so you'll also need to make decisions on the approach, right? So whether you go with a solution that provides for a lot of out-of-the-box features and functionality that can be customized and tailored to your needs versus building something completely from scratch, all right? So we have the concept of that blank slate, which is perfectly fine to start with, and especially in complex applications, right? You do definitely want to avoid reinventing the wheel, though, where you can, and leverage an underlying framework to get you where you need to be in a more timely and cost-effective manner. And in this day and age of digital transformation and disruption, agility and velocity to react to the market is key. Okay, so here's some potential challenges and roadblocks that you might run into. With outdated technologies, the question is, do you upgrade the software or do you replace it with something new? When making this decision, ask yourself, is the technology helping you meet your goals? If not, the decision's easy. It's basically, if that answer is yes, then you have to decide if there's room for improvement. If there's, if you have to figure out if the investment is worth the change. Ultimately, redundant technologies are never a good thing. So they promote data to live in silos and can be costly and very expensive. It's always best to consolidate at the end of the day here. So when technologies don't speak to each other, it makes creating a unified customer experience impossible. Here you want to consider investing in web services to tie those pieces together, or possibly look to an integrated solution. With large enterprise companies where you typically have more acquisitions over the years, this challenge is even more complicated, where you have multiple layers upon layers of data and technology that need to ultimately speak to each other in order to provide for that unified customer experience. So in this case, we'd suggest a technology audit to really assess the landscape, determine redundancies, what can be sunset, the methods of exchanging data back and forth, and that's ultimately how you can tie everything together at the end of the day here, is making a cohesive plan from a technology standpoint. Okay, so in summary, a unified customer experience really provides for positive customer perception and sentiment. It helps increase sales and drive revenues, creating new opportunities, and really enhances overall productivity. And I believe that wraps up our presentation for today. I see we have some time left here, so we greatly appreciate the time that you've spent with us this afternoon. If you have any questions or want a copy of this presentation, please email us at marketing@bridgeline.com, or you can contact Sean or I directly with our contact information here. And I think at this point we want to open it up to the floor to see if there's any questions out there over the chat.
All right, Carl. The first question here, and this is probably a good one for you, is how does abandoning shopping cart email experience tie into this?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, ultimately, that's one of the key triggers from a commerce standpoint. So, you know, if your folks are adding items to the cart, they leave that site, they don't transact. You want to be aware of that and be able to have that trigger follow-up campaigns to really drive that end user to convert at the end of the day. Right. So having a marketing automation platform in place that can understand, all right, this user has abandoned this cart X amount of hours ago or days ago, what have you, to be able to continue to engage with that user to ultimately drive them to conversion. All right. So definitely having a marketing automation platform in place that can understand those situations and react to that definitely is the way to go here.
All right, another one. Let's see here. Can you personalize based on location? I can answer that, but Carl, I'm sure you'll want to elaborate a little bit more. So yeah, you could personalize based on location. You could also personalize essentially based on anything. You can do it based on previous items that you've purchased. You can do it from perhaps maybe a country that you're in, your web browser, which potentially could indicate what language that you speak. You can do it based on something that you haven't done before. And a lot of these things you can personalize you can do it for both known users and anonymous users.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think the personalization, you know, there's so many different factors there to target content to users and target that messaging. So from a marketing standpoint, you always want to make sure, of course, you're covering your default anonymous user that comes in, but as they engage with you and we understand more about that user, what their interests are, what they're consuming from a content standpoint, also what geography they're navigating the site from, et cetera, you know, building that profile behind the scenes is critical, right? For this unified customer experience to be successful, you need that engine behind the scenes to be able to gather that profile information, continue to build that over time, and do something about it, right? So whether it's tailoring that messaging more effectively based on what we know of that user, could be based on that location where they are. Maybe there's something that's specific to that location. You can promote like a local event or what have you. So all that information about the end user is critical and allows you to really drive for that unified customer experience.
Good questions, guys. Keep it coming. Let's see here. I like this one. Carl, this is probably better for you. What ways do you handle attribution in a full omni-channel environment?
That's a great one. Yeah. So again, that ties back to that customer profile behind the scenes and establishing the profile and all the different attributes around that end user that you want to gather. And it's really, it varies from business to business, right? So so you want to make sure you choose a solution that is flexible, allowing you to really customize those attributes that make sense to your business. You know, that information you want to capture from that end user and how that's going to influence how you present that content to them and how you target more effectively to them based on that. So definitely having a system that'll capture those attributes and have that be part of that profile and give you that flexibility is key. And then also making sure that system talks to other systems, right? So as we start gathering attributes from end users based on what their interests are, hey, we want to notify the sales team and let them know that, hey, you know, these users are engaging with us online. We want to make that part of that offline conversation as well, right? So we want to make sure that the system can push that data to perhaps a CRM, for example, to notify the sales team, to have that influence a lot of those conversations that the sales team makes with that end user as well. So making sure that we're not only capturing that information online, but also sharing it in the offline world as well is key.
Yeah, and just to dovetail with Carl, what you said, we work with some amazing partners who are really experts in when it comes to mobile attribution too. Some of our partners roughly have, I think it's like 90+% of the U.S. labor workforce. So the use case that I can give to you with that is they're really able to make the determination that rather than all 30 people in a Starbucks in Times Square are the same person, they're not. They can make the determination that each of those 30 people that's in that Starbucks, they could provide different information about them independently, thus serving advertisements, or they could retarget you directly, or I should say uniquely. So that was a good question. Let's see here. Next question is, we'll combine these two. Prescriptive analysis, what examples of real-time sales intelligence can be used to help transactions? Carl, you want to maybe provide a use case for that?
Yeah, so real-time sales intelligence, so based on a user making a purchase on the site, or maybe, again, that add to cart metaphor that we talked about earlier. When they add to cart, maybe there's upsell opportunities, cross-sell opportunities there based on their interactions, what they're interested in. So so having the ability to react in real time to the user based on what actions they're taking, not only in sales, but across the board. You want to make sure you have a solution that provides for the real-time agility to modify that messaging and the targeting of your message to the end user, and also produce those opportunities for upsell, cross-sell, promoting other products or content, what have you, that are relevant to based on what the user's interests are is key here. So yeah.
No, that was good. I've actually got a good use case from one of my customers too. So so this client of ours, they do a lot of trade shows, and they were having one, I think it was in Germany, and they wanted to create a landing page for people when they went to their hotel and they wanted to come to their website. They were able to able to understand that their web browser, that they were from the U.S. So the website would first be in English, but when they would fill out a form, or they would do any type of actions on the website, such as fill out a case study or a white paper or some other action, the information would be passed to Salesforce.com in real time, and when the person would then come to the exhibit floor the following day, they would come up to the exhibitor booth, whatever, and they would scan their badge, and they would have access to all of the things that they were looking at. So if you've got like 1,000 products that you're selling, and or you're providing a number of services, the salesperson would have in real time exactly what it is that you were interested in. So I think that's a good example of how you're able to provide real-time sales intelligence based on people's interactions to people on the trade show floor booth.
Yeah, that's like another one too. Is we do it on our own site, right? So we have white paper downloads, et cetera. As folks engage with us online and they're taking those actions, we can inform our sales team in real time. And of course, as they're continuing to engage with us, they give us their contact info, what have you. That just informs the sales team to be able to really engage with them and close that deal. So and that's really also where lead scoring comes in, right? So as users are engaging, they're building that profile behind the scenes. I want to alert sales of the top leads that are engaging with us, the ones that have the most interest, right? So having a system of that has lead scoring built in to provide you with that radar of here's the top leads that you need to focus on today, right now, in order to identify those opportunities. So that's key as well, is factoring in lead scoring capabilities.
Cool. All right. Let's see here. Another question. How many emails do you include in a marketing automation campaign? I'm not sure if there's an exact number. I can tell you that here at Bridgeline, we, depending on the segment or persona, Carl, we've got between like 8 or 9 different emails that typically go out in each campaign.
Well, it really depends on the business, and yeah, in that case, it's, you're creating your automation campaign, and you're defining all the different business rules and how you want to react to a user taking an action on the site. So, that once they trigger that action, then we're sending that campaign off to them right away. So it's not necessarily that broad-reaching email blast metaphor anymore. It's really more the targeted messaging based on the user engaging with us. We're sending out those targeted messages on, in real time, essentially. So, so as they're taking action, we're able to dynamically react to that, and you no longer have the broad spamming techniques of sending out, to millions of contacts. And although some of our customers still do that, they can be more targeted, where as they're engaging, we're sending out different campaigns, drip campaigns to them based on what that end user's interests are. So you have a highly targeted and more effective approach to managing your campaigns now.
All right, I think we got maybe time for 1 or 2 more questions. So this next question is in regards to a franchise. So they're curious in hearing some different ways that you can leverage loyalty programs and how that all interjects with unified customer experience. Carl, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I don't think we talked too much about our franchise offering. So, we have the ability to manage an organization that has multiple units. So a franchise is one example, really a brand network, right? So we can provide for the management from a corporate standpoint, but also give the local presence the ability to manage their own world, right? Because they want to engage with their customers, their local customers. So we have a solution that gives corporate the ability to control brand and overall messaging from a corporate standpoint, and then give that local franchise owner, for example, the ability to personalize their experience as well. So that's one piece of it. But the loyalty program comes into play, where building that customer loyalty at the end of the day is key, and that's another area that where we build that customer profile. We have that underlying profile of the end user. The more they engage with us and building that loyalty out further, that's basically what it is at the end of the day. The 360 view of the customer, and using a loyalty program is something that can supplement that as well for your customers that engage with you on a regular basis, and you want to perhaps offer them loyalty points in a commerce setting. So it's definitely relevant in the case of a unified customer experience here. So it's certainly something you want to take a look at. We definitely see it more in the case of a commerce implementation.
Yeah, I think another thing with the loyalty programs, the challenge with a lot of like the individual franchisees is they might not want to participate, or they're not motivated to perhaps maybe get people to sign up for them to begin with. But you should be encouraging them, because if you get the more there's usually a finite number of people in your area that come into your store, or come to order food from your place or whatever, and you have an opportunity to capture their information, and I think they'll be a lot more motivated if there was something being done about it. So imagine someone going into a local pretzel shop and using their loyalty program. If there's being able to capture what they continuously order time after time, right, then that builds intelligence, so that when you send potentially email campaigns to that person, you're sending them a $1 off coupon for something that they continuously buy over and over again. That's a good way to perhaps maybe jumpstart to get to be top of mind. But and we talked about this a little bit early on about process. You have to have that integration between your point of sale and your email platform. So that's something to consider too. All right, I think that might have been it. Any other questions before we wrap up here? We still have got a couple more minutes, I think.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this concludes today's webinar. thank you very much for attending and for your questions. For a copy of this presentation, email us at marketing@bridgeline.com and stay tuned for upcoming webinars soon. Thanks again.
Take care, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.